have to ask my three fellow panelists, whom I'm a huge fan of all three of you, but I have to say, you guys have so much potential. I mean, can't you have bigger plans? I mean, come on. What are you doing in your spare time? God, all right.
I do hydroponics, which is why that was one of my hobbies. Yeah, that's why I thought that presentation was very best.
For some time, right?
No.
You've never met? Oh my God.
Rob, why not? What are you doing, Rob?
Barbara. Yes.
I can't even keep plants alive in my home.
So, you might want to move.
Yeah, I know.
A couple of plant scientists. Who has a question, comment, frustration, aggression, or hostility? Yes, please.
All right. So I was really attracted to Sam. I think you mentioned this, that we have to attract altruists to step up to the plate to start.
Who are altruists? How do we know? How do we attract them?
I mean, I can.
Yeah, you're the one that said it. Sounded great.
Oh, you specifically for Gen. How do you attract them to Gen AI, or how do you attract them to like technology in general? Okay. So I'll give I'll give the level X example. So our team is made up of people called like video games industry veterans. They've worked on Mortal Kombat, Call of Duty. Like they could basically work on any video game company they want to in the industry. And we've managed to bring them over to work in healthcare. And actually, it's the first time that's ever been done. The reason we're able to do all this crazy stuff is because of the talent. And the challenge is, how do you pull people away from entertainment to work in healthcare? And there was a chicken and egg problem. Because if you've ever looked, I have slides I can show you. If you ever look at like the state of the art in healthcare training, it's terrible. It looks like video games from the 90s. Any doctor will tell you it's horrible. And so if you were a video game developer and you wanted to go say, look, video games is altruistic, you're entertaining people, but you know what? I index even higher on the altruism scale. I really need fulfillment. I want to go, I've done 3 successful games. I want to work in healthcare. Immediately you had to compromise. And what that meant was
compromise because the quality
was going to be terrible. So instead of using the cutting edge video game tech, you're now going to be using crap. And we talk about game design, like the neuroscience of how do you balance reward and frustration, challenge and skill to maximize fun. That's why games are engaging. That's a more effective way of learning. You go to any of these sort of like gamification in healthcare, and it's all just
do you really
terrible.
Mean purpose-driven people as opposed to altruists? I mean, we could get into a philosophical argument about it. I think you made some money when you sold Level X, right?
Yeah.
To whom did you give all that money?
I mean, I have a donor-advised fund.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Oh, good.
Yeah, no, like we've donated lots of.
So I think maybe you mean purpose-driven artists or purpose-driven people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But specifically with regard to that, like, yes, I can donate money, but like, if I'm like the things I donate money to are areas where like I can provide a unique contribution.
I was just kidding, but I mean, I think it's a definitional issue. Sam doesn't really mean altruist necessarily, but the people who are purpose-driven, who want to create extraordinary things.
Correct.
How do we get them in using the big technology? Barbara, yours is kind of a slam dunk, right? By the way, did anybody else, I'm totally serious about this. I didn't know about, because I wasn't paying attention to the Little Prince thing. But when you mentioned that and the little video thing started, I'm thinking about time and the temperature in the room. And then I see this and I start tearing up. A rose on the moon. Did anyone else start? Come on, guys, put your hand. Did a few of us start? I started tearing up. I mean, you can attract some of these purpose-driven engineers and artists. Tell us about how you do that.
Well, we actually have a lot of people applying to join the company.
So you rejected one of them that I sent to you.
Oh, really? Well, that's my HR team now.
Yeah, okay,
just text me.
The idea is to get the panelists to argue with each other, not just to give them all a hard time.
Well, I think we're attracting a lot of people because we're just by the mission and what we're trying to do, which is very, I guess, very appealing, and it's very genuine. Well, I started this company because it's kind of a childhood dream. I did all my career in finance, was a very serious finance person before I started working on growing roses on the moon. but it's very genuine, and I think it's resonating with a lot of people on how we can understand better how the Earth is working, what's make our biosphere just able to support a human life, and the consciousness growing here on Earth, and how we can help expanding that into other planets. But then you have like a very visionary approach, but you need to have like a pragmatic plan. And I think this is how we've been able to attract so many people joining the company. It's because it's like very visionary, but then it's very pragmatic and very logical.
Yeah, I remember that evolution when you were talking about growing food on Mars, and I'm like, that's interesting. But then you said, but here's what we're going to do on Earth. That makes a ton of sense. Somebody else, all the way in the back. Yes, George or Greg. Sorry. Greg. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. You know, I've had to deal over quite a period with the legislative, regulatory, and litigation aspects of innovation, especially in technology. And all of your companies are dealing with AI as a part of the component. And as you know, there is a growing action by government. There's court issues, intellectual property issues, data privacy issues. There's so many different kinds of energy sourcing issues because of the massive increase in demand for electricity that AI is requiring. What is your perspective on how these issues have impacted what you're doing, and what is your sense of what should be done regarding that problem of government regulation, litigation surrounding AI?
Any thoughts?
So I'm going to give you a perspective. I'm not saying it's exactly accurate, but a lot of the regulations and regulators, like insurance, is 15,000 state regulators in the US, which is crazy. And I was on the other side of them. I was on the other side of OCC and SEC and every regulator you could name. And I had to present the living will of Citigroup to them at some point in the past. When you think about it, it's about trust. And the challenge we're having with AI right now is the trust question. It's not just about, is it accurate? I like Sam's analysis of the share. It's about, how does it explain how it came to the answer? So what I'm seeing, we launched a partnership last week with an AI company that Google brought to us and said, the two of you will change the world. It's the first AI that could explain inside out, like a human, what happened in the engine.
Really? That's so explainable.
Explainable AI. And so if you combine, and so what Uncork does is, the thing that we look at our role in AI, what I didn't mention is we have a time machine, like Apple Time Machine. We could show a regulator back in time what the application looked like in Uncork, and every time from the beginning of the application. So the dating app isn't the best example, but if you onboarded like Roman Abramovich and, and he was on the sanction list, you could open that in Uncork and see, why did you do it? And you could actually see and understand. When you combine that with AI, you have traceability and lineage. And at that point, you don't need a regulator. And so I actually believe we're going to get to, for those in insurance, like an insurance company like spends years building products and filing them in every state and getting approvals. We're actually trying to pilot right now to say, could we take the filing document, the end state, and reverse it into Uncork and build the application? No technology needed, no technologist, and have the underwriter replaced by the AI engine. And there's no people.
Have the underwriter.
Completely. I don't believe we're in assisted AI anymore. I believe if you could explain it, then that's better than a human could do. Human can't tell you, how did they come up with approving that application?
Well, that's similar to the arts discussion we had last night, and Natasha Tsakos' great decomposition of who are all the things inside an artist.
Exactly.
We don't know exactly what's going on as an artist, inside an artist. So,
but yeah, explainable AI is a solvable problem, and people are already doing it. And once you do that, it addresses a whole slew of issues. We do a lot of highly regulated work because we work with pharma. And so, we will make game content to help life science companies, help doctors diagnose disease, treat, and so on. Everything that we do there goes through a thorough medical, legal, regulatory review process. When I think about sort of how that intersects with innovation, games are made of rules. And so when the regulatory constraints come in, you can't make a claim about this, or you can't say this, that just adds to the rule set. And it just becomes a design constraint, and excellent designers are good at designing under constraints.
Building it in, just like Uncork is building it into the infrastructure. And so I remember years ago, McDonald's had this notion of freedom within a framework. So what you create is the framework, and then you have tons of freedom within it, and you have the guardrails built in. The guardrails might change, but as you said, and this is one of the powerful things about a platform like all of your platforms, is when if government changes a reg, you go in and you change it once in your platform, and it's good for everybody. One more. Narman.
Hi, thank you for a most stimulating panel. My question is for Gary Hoberman. You mentioned the evolution of cloud computing as a stage where enterprises started to have more ease in trying to create new technologies and new software for themselves. But there was a bargain involved with using that technology, and that meant that they owned data on your enterprise. And there was, and you had to basically, yes, your cost would be reduced, but there would be a trade-off. I'm wondering if I were to use Uncork for my newly created social enterprise, what would the Faustian bargain be to use Uncork right now?
Yeah, so we solved a lot of those problems. So I was there when Werner Vogel, CTO of Amazon, and Jeff presented to my boss at Citigroup back in 2007, I think it was. And we were like, we're better. We have 20,000 servers a year we buy. We have 9 data centers. We're better than they are. Like we shouldn't be because we're a bank. Like the reality is no one should own data centers. No one should have and the whole point is like someone could do it better than you can. We basically view the world as when Goldman Sachs came to us, they led us Series A, but first they were a client. And they said, there's no way we're storing customer data, socials, and date of birth. So if you saw what I did, I dragged the field. You don't know if that's privacy data or if that was like, is it date of birth or is it a start date? One of them's sensitive, one's not. So we have to assume every single component is privacy. Encrypted in transit storage rests with the highest degree. And so we built the company saying, forget blockchain, forget ledger. Like Goldman's going to want their own instance of Uncork with no one there but them. They don't want to know JP Morgan exists and JP Morgan don't. So when we create an instance for you and your company, isolated instance with your own encryption key that you keep on your side, not us, which means if someone broke into Uncork, there's no keys to the kingdom anywhere. They can't get anything. So we had to go through, Goldman put us through, JP Morgan put us through and said, we're not storing data in your instance. They both are. And they both are like, we got through those humps. And when we did the FedRAMP certification process, 700 security check controls and 694 complete green, 6 yellow. Never heard before. Like that is, we did it in 6 months. So, and like the regulation question, like Greg, like if you allow someone to inject script, simple JavaScript, like I'm not going to name the big vendors, but CRMs and ITSMs and, there's big platforms. If they open the door for you to even write one line of script, you could get hacked. Like you're not HIPAA compliant. So our goal is it's discipline. You can't violate our principles. So our platform is HIPAA compliant for healthcare. It's WORM compliant, ISO compliant, SEC regulation. We have SOC 2, Type 2, Privacy Shield, GDPR compliant, FedRAMP. You can't violate it. So as the compliance comes up, you're benefiting. You will never think about compliance again. And so you have to trust, like, and it's such a funny world we live in. Like we presented to a CEO and his team. And I remember we just put the Uncork slide up that we flew in. It was in Canada, big regulated company. And like before we even said who we are, the question came up from the chief architect, do you use blockchain? And we're like, absolutely not. We're trusted to store your data without that risk, without the increased encryption, without the need. We're doing it. Like, and the next question was, what happens to Uncork when the keyboard goes away, the mouse goes away, screen goes away? Like, we're like Siri, Alexa, and the answer is we explained it. And then we asked the question we always ask, what's your biggest problem? Like, we're excited. This sounds like a really advanced group, blockchain and Siri and what we're doing in AI. And the CEO goes, we're run by fax machines. The entire business is run on fax machines. Can you get the fax machines away? There's such a disconnect between our world of like what Gen AI is doing and then the fax machines are still running the business.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're coming down to you and we're going to go to a break in a moment. But I want to put my fellow panelists on the spot. Maybe it's obvious how big a fan I am of each of these people and how extraordinary they are. So I'm going to put them on this. I haven't prepped them for this. I would like to ask you to briefly, don't explain it, just briefly describe what you see as your personal professional mission, your personal professional purpose. And I'll start with Barbara because she knows this inside and out. as I give the two gentlemen time to think about it,
Thank you.
I articulate my professional purpose specifically as I help people envision the future and find their places within it. So if something has that in it, I'm probably going to be interested. Doesn't mean I'll do it because we all have limited time. I help people envision the future and find their places within it. That's my statement of purpose. Barbara. Microphone.
I help terrestrial life become multiplanetary.
I help terrestrial life become multiplanetary. Fantastic. Gary.
I hope to one day enable information to be entered and existed only once in the world.
Once. And then be accessible and usable forever.
Yes.
Wow. Sam.
I make sure that technology and business doesn't get in the way of artists' creative vision.
Artists creating vision. Did you notice Barbara mentioned a couple of times, well, for our customers here on Earth, I'll talk about market segments.
We have customers on Earth and in space.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, right, because you work with the Rate and out
yeah.
and Trish and NASA.
I get to use terms like we have the terrestrial rights to that.
Ah.
Like it's a lot of fun. It's great.
It's awesome. I love that when we are in meeting with the team and I'm like, okay, so let's talk about our Earth business and then we focus on the, low Earth orbit. It's cool.
Or when clients say like, oh, what countries are you in?
Yeah.
Talk to me about your global footprint. Like, how big are we talking?
Mars, the moon.
I love it.
Gary, you started out by saying, this is a $2 trillion problem. We need a better solution. Sam, 6 months to 1 weekend. 6 months, we estimate, might get the job done. We did it in 1 weekend. By the way, Mark Kennedy from Imperial College London, who's here, shared with us in an AI roundtable yesterday the notion of additive AI, which he defines as AI doing things that we actually couldn't do before, that enable us to do things we could not have done before. In the book, we talk a lot about the following challenge, which I believe is one of the pivotal questions for each of us the rest of the century. When technology can increasingly do anything, and we do mean anything, the question for each of us becomes, what should we do and why? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.